Hey guys, what's cracking? It's Krakenation here. I'm coming at you guys today with the next installment of the Team Building University, where you can come and learn about different concepts and things to just improve on in your team building. So if you guys haven't watched the Team Archetype Spectrum, I recommend you guys do that, because now the goal is what we're going to start doing is we're going to start rattling off the different types of roles, so that now when we have this archetype spectrum, we know all the archetypes that we can play. If we run through all the roles, and there's going to be a lot of them, so we're going to do a lot of videos on roles. Once we run through all the basic roles a Pokemon can fulfill on a team, we're going to then go into the next step, which is going to be what are the teams and are the archetypes comprised of, or what can you think about. So the goal of these videos is going to be so that you can help you guys identify what the roles are, help you guys figure out what you're looking at when you see a Pokemon, and maybe what kind of traits you want to go for, or help you guys just in general identify the specific Pokemon on their own. And then from there, we're going to go into some examples. We're going to talk about all the things that make those Pokemon specifically viable in the metagame right now. And hopefully, eventually, you guys get pretty good at identifying them on your own. And we'll be able to take the next step into the archetypes and what those archetypes are comprised of. Let's go ahead and start today with physical walls. So the physical walls are going to be... We're going to talk about that a little bit, but this is just basically, we're going to be talking about defensive Pokemon first, and we're going to go all the way up the spectrum to offensive Pokemon. So physical walls are going to be the first step in our journey. So what is a physical wall? So it's a Pokemon capable of taking physical attacks without losing too much health. So that's pretty basic. They're Pokemon that just have the ability to take hits and not lose all their health in the process, right? It's pretty straightforward, pretty easy to know. But then this is done with the intention of preventing the opponent's physical attack from exerting too much pressure. So now, why are we trying to take physical attack? So the point is that if a Pokemon, a physical attacker in this case, on your opponent's side of the field is threatening your whole team, you can hopefully bring in your physical wall and therefore stop it from threatening your whole team, therefore hopefully stopping it from exerting too much pressure. So that's the concept there, and that's what we're going to have to keep in mind. So ideally, you possess recovery to repeat the start of the match. So not all physical walls, and the difference between a lot of physical tanks and physical walls is the ability to have access to recovery or offense. A lot of physical walls will hopefully have access to recovery, and we'll go into some examples later, but you want your physical wall to be able to take hits, but then also heal off the damage ideally. If you're relying on something like leftovers for recovery or a gimmick to like Wish Pass for healing, you might find that you're going to be a little hard pressed to get your healing off successfully. So why are physical walls important, and why are they going to be important to your team? So the most important thing we can talk about is that a good physical wall can prevent your opponent from gaining free offensive pressure, which is what we were just talking about, how these physical walls are, the goal is to stop a physical attacker from threatening your entire team. They make you a little susceptible to sweepers and other offensive Pokemon by virtue of the fact that they are stopping the pressure on your side of the field. So what traits are we looking for when we're looking at physical walls? So we're going to start off obviously with the kind of bread and butter. You got to have a lot of physical defense and or health. So if you have a lot of physical bulk, when we use terms like physical bulk, which this is what we're referring to, they have a lot of physical defense and a lot of physical health, a lot of health to sponge attacks as well as possible. Ideally, access to recovery, like we were just talking about, you want to be able to heal off damage if possible. A move pool that allows them to shut down physical attackers could be really helpful. That maybe is a good, like a toxic could be a good option. Another good option could potentially be something like a powerful base power move. So like if we think about things like Corviknight currently in the metagame, Corviknight a lot of times runs Brave Bird or Iron Head or Body Press. These are all potentially good moves on it. So even though it's not a physical attacker, it has moves that still can do some damage in a pinch. And then finally, a good defensive typing can be very, very beneficial as well. If you have a good defensive typing, you'll be able to take more hits than you might otherwise be able to, because you have some resisted hits, hopefully a wide variety of common resisted hits. So like for example, a good steel type might be able to resist those fairy types that are everywhere right now, or those dragon types that are everywhere right now, or flying type attackers. So that's why you want a good defensive typing, and a lot of times a really, really good defensive typing can make up the difference between where you may lack in one of these other attributes. So for example, I think a really good example is Clefable, where Clefable is a pretty good physical wall if you need it to be, but doesn't actually have great stats, and the main reason is because its physical defense is really boosted by the fact that it has fairy type, which is a good defensive typing. So keep that in mind. So I want to take some time to go over some examples here. So the first example we're going to be looking at is Corviknight, which is a really, really common Pokemon in the metagame right now as a go-to defensive wall. It's absolutely everywhere, and the reasons are obvious, right? You've got that access to that physical defense stat like we were talking about. You've got access to recovery in Roost. You've got access to some utility moves like Defog or U-Turn. taunt, stuff like that could be really useful in a pinch. And you've also got access to a really good defensive typing by virtue of Steel Flying, leaving you with only 2 weaknesses in Electric and Fire, but a lot of really, really nice resistances to things like Fairy, to Flying, to Dragon, a lot of great Poison, a lot of great resistances and immunities, Ground. Just a really, really great typing. And this is kind of the first and foremost example of a good physical wall right now. Another Pokemon I want to talk about is another Pokemon that you may not see as much right now, but hopefully will be back in the game at some point, and that's Alomola. Alomola is a really good physical wall because it's got a really great HP stat and not a great physical defense stat, but the fact that its physical defense stat is okay and its HP stat is so high, it makes it really, really good as a physical wall. And Regenerator gives it that extra recovery. It's got Wish Pass support, so it's got the ability to heal itself with Wish or its teammates. What's really nice about Alomola is it can Wish Pass with its teammates, but also keep itself healthy with Regenerate at the same time, which is sometimes a thing that a lot of Wish Passing Pokemon have to struggle with. So something like Clefable can't do that, for example. So it's pretty cool. But it's also got access to Scald to neuter physical attackers. Toxic could be good, so just keep that in mind. It's got a lot of tools to work with there. For sure. So the next Pokemon I want to talk about is Mandibuzz, and Mandibuzz is a really good physical wall as well in the metagame right now. Not quite as popular as Corviknight, but still very, very good. Again, a great defensive typing. It's got a lot of resistance as well. Not again, Steel type is better, so Dark Flying is not quite as good. But you slap on a heavy duty boots on this thing, and you're going to be able to run things like Roost, Defog, U-Turn. Foul Play is a really cool move on it because it can hit those physical attackers with their own physical attack stats, so potentially really, really useful. So this Pokemon is a really, really good one to keep an eye out, and is very, very often paired with something like Corviknight, and then you just get a good electric resist, and you've got fantastic physical defense on your team. The last Pokemon I want to talk about is a different kind of a lower tier example, and that's Miltank. Miltank, again, it's got access to Milk Drink. It can get for recovery. It's got Heal Bell. It's got Thick Fat that gives it pure normal, which is an okay defensive typing. Not fantastic, but it's honestly okay. It gives it a couple more resistances. Sap Sipper is another option too. And then Milk Drink has also got Heal Bell. It's got Stealth Rock, so you're really getting just a wide variety of support roles in Miltank. So it's in a lower tier, I realize, but something you guys might want to consider going into the future. If you are playing a lower tier, Miltank's a really, really good option. Or if you want to use some uncommon Pokemon, it's honestly pretty slept on. So how are we going to support a physical wall when we're building with it? So what kind of physical team you're fitting into is the most important thing to think about. Again, we're going to go over archetypes in the future, but what kind of team you are building this Pokemon into is going to be really crucial. So if you're building, let's say, an offensive team, you might want to think about building a more bulky offensive team where you've got maybe, let's say, pair this with a specialty defensive wall, and then you've got a defensive backbone, and then your other 4 Pokemon could be a couple wall breakers, a sweeper, and a cleaner, and then you're kind of rolling, you know. But if you're playing a more stall team on the other side of that spectrum, maybe you need to pair it with an extra physical tank, an extra special tank, and a special wall, and then maybe a couple defensive pivot, and now you're playing a stall team. So there's different types of teams that will support this role, but it's important that you recognize what you're building, and then you know how to support your physical wall. If you're looking for a special wall, that would be my best advice to pair it with. A special wall that helps cover its weaknesses. Ideally, a special wall that also doesn't share its weaknesses. It can cover its resistances. So we've talked about some cores that work really well in the past. Something like a Corviknight and a Seismitoad, for example, are really good partners. Now keep in mind that's a little weak to special defense or special offense right now in the metagame. That's just an example of you can look for places where you can get typing synergy as well. But hopefully you can find a Pokemon. Something that comes to mind from the past is something like Skarmory and Blissey. Scar and Bliss was a really, really popular defensive core for a long time because Skarmory was a physical attacker, and it was a physical defender, and it was able to tank a lot of special physical hits. And then Blissey being Chansey being such a great special defender, it was really, really useful, and then they could cover each other nicely in that regard. Good typing partners, kind of what I was just saying, is really important for you guys. And then also another thing I want you guys to think about is pivots. Pivots can be really, really helpful. So if you have a offensive pivot that can come in, like Cinderace, for example, deal some damage. I think Cinderace is a really good example because let's say your Cinderace is out there clicking those powerful Pyro Balls. You know, you're loving it, you're loving life, you're living large, but then your opponent brings in a Seismitoad or a Toxapex to come and wall you. Let's say Seismitoad for this example. Seismitoad is an issue. You're kind of threatened now. So what can you do? You can go out maybe into your Corviknight and be immune to that ground move. Or maybe you can go into a, I don't know, I'm trying to think of a water resist, like I guess an Alomola, even though that doesn't exist right now. You can go into a water resisting physical wall and don't fear that Scald as much. So there are options, and I think for that reason, if you have the moves like U-Turn or volt switch, you can get some really useful pivots into your defensive wall. So I think offensive pivots are potentially really good partners. Finally, how much offense you want to bring is important to keep in mind. So if you, like I was talking earlier with your archetype, recognizing your archetype, recognizing that your special wall or your physical wall, whatever wall you're bringing, is not going to be bringing that much offense into the picture, and how are you going to support your offense in the grand scheme of things if that's what you want to play. Now, if you're playing a stall team, you're not going to have offense, so keep that in mind. Decide how are you going to support the type of archetype that you're playing, and how much offense are you going to need to carry this physical wall to victory. Anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you guys want to keep seeing these videos and what you guys think of this format. I always love making them, so make sure to leave a comment, rate, subscribe if you guys really enjoyed this. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Krakenation out.